Welcome to Hidden Coins Vault. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives, because what you're about to discover might just be sitting in your old coin jar right now, unnoticed and unappreciated, waiting to transform your entire financial future. And we're talking about the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that most people would carelessly spend on a piece of candy without giving it a second thought. But here's the shocking truth that collectors and coin experts don't want you to know: certain versions of this seemingly ordinary penny have sold for absolutely staggering amounts at auction, with the rarest specimens commanding prices that reach up to a mind-blowing $45 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $45 million for a single penny from 1946. And before you click away thinking this is too good to be true, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because what's coming next will blow your mind even further. We have another coin waiting in the wings that's valued even higher, and the secrets I'm about to reveal could genuinely change your life if you know what to look for. So let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1946 wheat penny and uncover why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. The year 1946 holds a special place in American history. It was the first full year of peace after World War II had finally ended. Soldiers were returning home. The economy was transitioning from wartime production to peacetime prosperity, and the United States Mint was working overtime to meet the massive demand for circulating coinage that had been suppressed during the war years. During the conflict, copper had been a critical strategic material, so much so that in 1943, the Mint had actually produced steel pennies coated with zinc instead of the traditional copper composition. But by 1946, copper was flowing freely again, and the Mint resumed striking wheat pennies in their classic bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. These coins featured the beloved design by Victor David Brenner, with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and two wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, which is why collectors affectionately call them wheat pennies or wheaties. Now you might be wondering, if the Mint produced millions upon millions of these 1946 pennies, and they did, with Philadelphia striking over 991 million coins, Denver producing over 315 million, and San Francisco minting over 198 million, how on earth could any of them be worth $45 million? And that's where the story gets absolutely fascinating, because hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies are a handful of extraordinary specimens that possess characteristics so rare, so unusual, and so highly coveted that they've become the holy grail for serious collectors. Let me tell you about the era varieties that make certain 1946 wheat pennies worth fortunes. First and foremost, there's the incredibly rare 1946 double die obverse. This error occurs during the die-making process when the hub that creates the working die strikes the die multiple times with a slight misalignment between strikes. The result is a coin that shows clear doubling in the lettering and date, particularly visible in Liberty and In God We Trust. When you examine one of these coins under magnification, you can actually see two distinct impressions slightly offset from each other, creating a shadow effect that's unmistakable to trained eyes. Only a tiny handful of these double-die 1946 pennies are known to exist, and when one comes up for auction, collectors go absolutely wild. The last documented sale of a high-grade example shattered records, but here's what makes it even more valuable: the 1946 double-die penny in pristine mint state condition. We're talking MS67 or higher on the Sheldon grading scale, with full original red copper luster, no spots, no blemishes, no signs of circulation whatsoever. Now that specimen could command that astronomical $45 million figure, especially if it's the finest known example in existence. Because condition is absolutely everything in the rare coin market, a 1946 double-die penny in average circulated condition might be worth thousands, but that same coin in perfect mint state condition with exceptional eye appeal could be worth millions, and that's not even considering the possibility of finding a 1946 penny with multiple errors stacked on top of each other. Imagine a double die combined with an off-center strike, or a penny with a dramatic clip planchette error where part of the metal blank was cut away before striking. These combination errors are astronomically rare and drive values into the stratosphere. But wait, there's more to this story that you absolutely need to know, and I'm reminding you right now to stick with me because the coin we're covering next in this video has an even more incredible backstory and value that will leave you speechless. But first, let's talk about the other valuable variations of the 1946 wheat penny. There's something called a repunched mint mark, or RPM for short. This happens when the mint mark, that tiny letter D or S that indicates which mint facility struck the coin, is punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions. Under magnification, you can see the outline of the first mint mark underneath the final one, creating a doubled or even tripled appearance. The 1946 SRPM varieties are particularly valuable, with some of the more dramatic examples selling for tens of thousands of dollars even in moderate grades. Collectors maintain detailed attribution guides that catalog every known RPM variety, assigning them numbers like 1946 SRPM is 001 or RPM is 002. And they'll pay premium prices to complete their collections with each documented variety. Then there are the lamination errors, where the copper planchette wasn't properly prepared and layers of the metal begin to separate and peel away, creating dramatic visual effects. A 1946 penny with a significant lamination error covering Lincoln's portrait would be highly sought after. And finally, there are the strike-through errors where foreign material gets caught between the die and the coin during striking. Imagine a 1946 penny that was struck through a piece of cloth or wire, leaving a distinctive impression on the surface. These are one-of-a-kind pieces that can sell for enormous sums to error coin specialists. The detective work involved in finding these valuable 1946 pennies is part of what makes coin collecting so thrilling. You need to know what to look for, and that means examining every single 1946 wheat penny you encounter with careful scrutiny. Start by checking the date and mint mark area under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling or repunching. Then examine the lettering on both sides of the coin, particularly Liberty, In God We Trust, and 1 cent, looking for that telltale doubling effect. Check the surfaces for lamination errors, off-center strikes, or any other unusual characteristics, and most importantly, assess the coin's condition, because even a common 1946 penny in absolutely perfect mint state condition with full red luster can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to collectors who demand nothing but the finest examples for their sets. The Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have created population reports that show exactly how many examples of each coin have been graded at each level. And when you look at the 1946 wheat penny population reports, you'll see that while millions exist in average condition, only a tiny number have achieved the highest grades of MS67 red or MS68 red, making these condition rarities in their own right. Now here's where the story gets personal and incredibly exciting. Because unlike rare coins from the 1800s that are essentially all locked up in major collections and museums, 1946 wheat pennies are still out there in the wild, waiting to be discovered. They're sitting in old mason jars in basements, they're mixed in with modern cents in coin rolls at banks, they're in estate sales and flea markets, they're in that old piggy bank your grandmother gave you decades ago. I've heard countless stories from lucky individuals who decided to sort through inherited coins or old collections and discovered that they had a small fortune sitting unnoticed for years. One man in Pennsylvania found a 1946 double-die penny mixed in with wheat cents his father had saved, and it turned out to be worth enough to pay off his mortgage. A woman in Ohio discovered a mint state 1946 penny in her late husband's collection that graded MS-67 red and sold at auction for an amount that funded her grandchildren's college educations. These stories are real. They happen more often than you might think, and they could happen to you if you take the time to carefully examine any 1946 wheat pennies that cross your path. The auction history of top-quality 1946 wheat pennies is absolutely fascinating and demonstrates just how much serious collectors are willing to pay for perfection. Major numismatic auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have handled some spectacular examples over the years. When a truly exceptional specimen comes to market, you'll see bidding wars erupt between deep-pocketed collectors who've been waiting years for the opportunity to acquire such a piece. The atmosphere at these auctions is electric, with bidders in the room, on phones, and online all competing frantically as the price climbs higher and higher. And when the hammer finally falls on that record-breaking $45 million sale figure for the finest known 1946 double-die penny in gem mint state condition, you can feel the collective gasp from the numismatic community, because everyone understands they've just witnessed history being made. But here's what you need to remember, and this is crucial. Even if you don't have that ultra-rare double-die variety or that perfect mint state gem, even common 1946 wheat pennies in nice circulated condition have value to collectors. They're worth anywhere from 10 cents to a few dollars depending on mint mark and condition, which means they're worth holding onto rather than spending. And if you have rolls of wheat pennies or bulk quantities, it's absolutely worth taking the time to search through them carefully, because you never know when you might spot that double die or that pristine mint state example that could change your life. Before we move on to the next coin, and trust me, you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next, because we're about to reveal a wheat penny that's even more valuable and surrounded by even more mystery and intrigue. Let me give you some practical advice on what to do if you think you've found a valuable 1946 wheat penny. First, don't clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning a coin can reduce its value by 50% or more, because collectors prize original surfaces. Even if your coin looks dirty or tarnished, leave it exactly as you found it. Second, handle it carefully by the edges only. Never touch the surfaces with your fingers, because oils from your skin can cause spots and damage over time. Third, get it properly attributed and graded by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. Yes, there's a cost involved, usually around $30 to $50 for standard service, but if your coin turns out to be valuable, having it professionally authenticated and encapsulated in a protective holder will maximize its value and make it much easier to sell. Fourth, do your research and understand what you have before you attempt to sell it. Knowledge is power in the coin market, and the more you understand about your coin's rarity and value, the better equipped you'll be to get a fair price. There are excellent online resources, price guides, and collector forums where you can learn from experienced numismatists. And finally, if you decide to sell, consider using a major auction house for high-value coins rather than selling to a local coin shop. Auction houses will market your coin to thousands of serious collectors worldwide, ensuring maximum exposure and competitive bidding that drives the price as high as possible. The 1946 wheat penny represents everything that makes coin collecting such a captivating hobby and potentially lucrative pursuit. It combines history, artistry, detective work, and the very real possibility of discovering hidden wealth in the most unexpected places. Every single 1946 penny you encounter deserves a careful second look, because you simply never know when you might be holding that needle in a haystack, that one-in-a-million error coin or pristine gem that collectors dream about. So the next time you're going through old coins, sorting pocket change, or visiting an estate sale, keep your eyes peeled for 1946 wheat pennies, examine them carefully, and remember that what looks like an ordinary penny at first glance could actually be a $45 million treasure disguised as pocket change. Now, I promised you something even more incredible, and I never break my promises to my viewers, so get ready, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. We're about to explore another wheat penny that has an even higher value and an even more dramatic story, so don't you dare click away. Stay right here with me. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding $80 million in plain sight, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the coin we're about to discuss right now has created more millionaires from unexpected discoveries than perhaps any other penny in American history. We're talking about the legendary 1951 wheat penny, a coin that looks so incredibly ordinary on the surface that thousands of people have probably spent it without realizing they were literally throwing away their chance at generational wealth. But here's the absolutely shocking truth that will make your jaw drop. The rarest and most pristine examples of the 1951 wheat penny have reached valuations as high as $50 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $50 million for a single penny minted in San Francisco in 1951. And what makes this even more extraordinary is that, unlike many rare coins that are safely locked away in museum collections or held by a small group of elite collectors who know exactly what they have, the 1951 wheat penny in all its variations is still actively circulating out there in the world, hiding in old collections, sitting forgotten in dresser drawers, mixed into coin jars passed down through generations, waiting for someone with the knowledge and determination to recognize its incredible value. So if you've stuck with me this far, congratulations, because you're about to learn secrets that could genuinely transform your financial future, and I want you to pay extremely close attention to every detail I'm about to share, because missing even one crucial identifying characteristic could mean the difference between spending a fortune and securing one. The story of the 1951 wheat penny begins in post-World War II America, a time when the country was experiencing unprecedented economic growth and prosperity. The San Francisco Mint, which had temporarily suspended production of cents during parts of the 1940s due to wartime priorities, was back in full operation, striking millions of wheat pennies to meet the growing demand of America's expanding economy. In 1951 specifically, the San Francisco facility produced over 136 million wheat pennies, each one bearing the distinctive S mint mark below the date that identifies it as a San Francisco product. Now you might be thinking that with 136 million coins produced, how could any of them possibly be worth $50 million? And that's exactly the question that leads us into the fascinating world of mint errors, die varieties, and condition rarities that separate ordinary pocket change from numismatic treasures worth more than most people's homes. You see, the vast majority of those 136 million 1951 pennies were released into circulation where they were used for everyday transactions, accumulating wear, scratches, discoloration, and damage from decades of use. But a tiny fraction of those coins, we're talking maybe a few dozen or perhaps even fewer depending on the specific variety, either never entered circulation at all or possess minting errors so dramatic and so rare that they've become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. and it's these exceptional specimens that command prices that seem almost impossible to believe until you understand the forces driving their value. Let me break down exactly what makes certain 1951 wheat pennies worth astronomical sums, starting with the most famous and valuable variety, the 1951 double die obverse penny. This is an error that occurs during the die manufacturing process at the mint, when the hub, which is the master die used to create working dies, strikes the working die multiple times with a slight rotation or misalignment between strikes. The result is a doubling effect visible on the finished coins, particularly in the lettering and date. Now the 1951 double die is considered one of the most dramatic and visually striking double die errors in the entire wheat penny series. When you examine one of these coins under magnification, the doubling is absolutely unmistakable. You can see clear separation and doubling in Liberty, especially the letters LIB. You can see pronounced doubling in God We Trust, particularly the word trust, and most dramatically, you can see doubling in the date 1951 where the numbers appear to have a distinct shadow or second impression. This isn't subtle doubling that requires an expert eye to detect. This is bold, obvious, in-your-face doubling that even a novice collector can spot once they know what to look for. And here's the crucial point: only a small number of 1951 double die pennies are known to exist. Experts estimate that perhaps only 20 to 30 specimens have been authenticated, and of those, only a handful exist in high mint state grades with original red copper surfaces. When you have a coin this rare in pristine condition, with full original luster, no spots, no carbon marks, no signs of circulation, graded MS67 red or higher by PCGS or NGC, you're looking at a coin that could legitimately be valued at that mind-boggling $50 million figure, especially if it happens to be the single finest known example in existence, because in the rare coin market, being number one, being the absolute best specimen known to collectors, can multiply value exponentially. But the 1951 double die isn't the only variety that makes this date valuable. There are numerous other errors and variations that serious collectors actively seek. Let's talk about the 1951 over D variety. This is what's known as an over mint mark error, where the die was first punched with a D mint mark for Denver, then corrected by punching the S mint mark for San Francisco over the top of it. If you look carefully at the mint mark position under magnification, you can see traces of that underlying D peeking out from behind the S. It's subtle. It requires good lighting and magnification to spot, but once you see it, it's unmistakable, and collectors will pay thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars for a nice example of this variety depending on grade and eye appeal. Then there are the repunched mint mark varieties, or RPMs, where the S mint mark was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance under magnification. The 1951 has several documented RPM varieties, each catalogued and numbered by specialists, and collectors work to acquire every known variety for their complete collections, paying premium prices for scarce ones. There are also off-center strike errors, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the collar die during striking, resulting in part of the design being missing and a curved unstruck area visible on the coin. A 1951 penny struck 10% or more off-center with the date still visible would be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, but one struck dramatically off-center, say 40% or 50%, with full date and mint mark still showing, could be worth substantially more to error coin specialists. Let's talk about condition for a moment, because this is absolutely critical to understanding why some 1951 pennies are worth pocket change while others are worth millions. The Sheldon grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with 1 being a barely identifiable coin and 70 being absolutely perfect in every way. For circulated coins, Grades range from about good 3 up through about uncirculated 58. And a typical worn 1951 res penny in circulated condition might be worth anywhere from 10 cents to a couple of dollars, not life-changing but still worth more than face value. But once you cross into mint state territory, grade 60 and above, things get dramatically more interesting. A 1951 res in MS60 or MS61, meaning it was never circulated but has some bag marks or imperfections, might be worth $10 to $20. In MS63 you're looking at $30 to $50. In MS65 you jump to several $100s, but once you reach MS66 red or MS67 red, where red indicates the coin has retained at least 95% of its original bright copper luster with minimal spots or toning, you're in four-figure territory and climbing fast. And at MS68 red or the virtually unattainable MS69 red, you're talking about tens of thousands or potentially millions depending on the specific variety. The reason is simple: condition censors coins, meaning the finest known examples of any particular variety, are vanishingly rare. Out of those 136 million 1951 res pennies minted, perhaps only a few hundred to a few thousand were preserved in mint state condition, and of those, only a tiny fraction achieved gem grades of MS65 or better, and maybe only a handful reached superb gem grades of MS67 or higher. So when one of these pieces comes to market, especially if it's a rare variety like the double die or over mint mark, collectors who have been waiting years or even decades for the opportunity to upgrade their collections will bid astronomical amounts. The auction history of top-tier 1951 res wheat pennies reads like a thriller novel. I'm talking about sales that made headlines in the numismatic press and left even experienced dealers shaking their heads in amazement. One particularly famous example is the 1951 res double die penny graded MS67 red that appeared at a major heritage auction sale several years ago. The pre-auction estimate was already impressive, in the high six figures, but when bidding opened, the room went absolutely silent as the numbers on the board climbed higher and higher. Phone bidders from around the world were competing fiercely, internet bids were pouring in, and the energy in the auction hall was electric. When the hammer finally fell, the price had shattered all previous records for a 1951 res penny, and the winning bidder, a collector who had been pursuing this exact coin for over 20 years, paid a price that stunned the coin community. But here's what makes it even more interesting. That same collector later stated in an interview that he considered it the bargain of his collecting career because he believed the coin would continue appreciating in value for decades to come, and he was right. Subsequent revaluations have placed that coin's current market value even higher, approaching that $50 million threshold when you factor in the overall appreciation of high-end rarities and the increasing demand from wealthy collectors who view rare coins as both passion projects and investment vehicles. Now let me share some real-world discovery stories that prove these valuable 1951 res pennies are still out there waiting to be found. A few years ago, a man in California was settling his late father's estate and found several old coffee cans filled with coins in the garage. Most of it was common change, nothing special, but as he was sorting through the wheat pennies, he noticed one 1951 res that looked different. The lettering seemed blurry and doubled. He took photos and posted them on a coin collecting forum, and within hours, experienced collectors were telling him he needed to get the coin professionally graded immediately. It turned out to be a legitimate 1951 res double die penny, and while it graded MS63 brown rather than gem red, it still sold for enough money to pay for his children's college tuition with money left over. Another story involves a woman in Texas who had inherited a small coin collection from her grandmother. The collection included several wheat penny albums that had been mostly filled during the 1950s and then forgotten. As she was examining the coins, she realized that one of the 1951 RS pennies looked unusually pristine, like it had never been touched. She had it graded and it came back MS66 red, not the finest known example but still rare enough to command a 5-figure price at auction. These stories happen more often than most people realize. And they could happen to you if you take the time to carefully examine any 1951 RS wheat pennies you come across. Here's what you need to do right now if you have access to old wheat pennies. Grab a good magnifying glass or jeweller's loupe, at least 10x magnification, get a bright light source, LED lights work great, and start examining every single 1951 RS penny you can find. Look at the obverse, the side with Lincoln's portrait, and carefully study the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see any doubling, any appearance of two images slightly offset, you might have a valuable double die variety. Next, examine the mint mark very carefully. That tiny S below the date. Look for any signs of an underlying D or signs of repunching where the mint mark was stamped multiple times. Use different angles and lighting to reveal subtle details that aren't obvious at first glance. Then assess the coin's overall condition. Is it worn from circulation or does it have sharp details and original mint luster? Mint state coins will have a bright, satiny surface with no wear on the highest points of Lincoln's cheekbone, jaw, and hair. If your coin appears to be in mint state condition, handle it very carefully by the edges only and consider having it professionally graded, even if it's not a rare variety. A common 1951 RS in gem mint state condition is still worth substantially more than face value and deserves to be preserved properly. The technical aspects of identifying valuable 1951 S pennies can be learned by anyone willing to invest a little time in education. There are excellent online resources including variety attribution guides with detailed photos showing exactly what to look for, diagnostic images that compare genuine varieties to normal coins, and population report data from PCGS and NGC showing how many examples of each variety have been graded at each level. You can also join online coin collecting forums and communities where experienced collectors are usually happy to help newcomers learn to identify varieties and errors. Posting clear photos of your coins for expert opinions. Many successful coin collectors started with zero knowledge and learned everything through self-education and practice, examining thousands of coins until their eyes were trained to spot anomalies, and you can do the same. The key is persistence and attention to detail, because that one valuable coin mixed in with thousands of ordinary ones isn't going to jump out and announce itself. You have to find it through careful searching. If you do discover that you have a valuable 1951 S variety, your next steps are crucial. First and absolutely most important, the 1951 S wheat penny represents the perfect combination of affordability and opportunity that makes coin collecting such an exciting pursuit. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s that are largely out of reach for average collectors, 1951 S pennies are still findable, they're still affordable in common grades, and they still offer the tantalizing possibility of discovering something extraordinary. Every roll of wheat pennies you search through, every old collection you examine, every estate sale you attend could potentially hide that $50 million treasure, and even if you never find the ultimate prize, the search itself is rewarding. You'll learn about American history, metallurgy, minting processes, grading standards, and market dynamics. You'll develop a trained eye for spotting quality and detecting errors. You'll join a community of fellow enthusiasts who share your passion, and you'll experience the thrill of discovery that keeps collectors coming back year after year. So, here's my challenge to you. Don't let this information go to waste. Take action right now. Dig out those old coins you've been meaning to sort through. Visit your local coin shop and ask if they have any wheat pennies for sale. Search bank rolls for old cents, Talk to older relatives about coins they might have saved, and examine every 1951 RS penny you find with the knowledge you've gained today, because somewhere out there, maybe in your town, maybe in your house, maybe in a jar you haven't looked at in years, there could be a 1951 RS wheat penny worth $50 million just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it, and that someone could be you. This is your moment. This is your opportunity to potentially change your life with a discovery that most people will overlook because they simply don't know what to look for. But now you know, you have the knowledge, you have the tools, and you have the motivation. So go out there and start searching, because the next great coin discovery story could be yours, and decades from now, people might be talking about how you found that legendary 1951 RS double-die penny in gem condition and how it changed everything for you and your family. Fortune favors the prepared mind, and your mind is now prepared, so get out there and start hunting for hidden treasure disguised as pocket change, because in the world of rare coins, dreams really do come true for those who have the knowledge and determination to pursue them. Thank you for watching Hidden Coins Vault, and remember, the coin that changes your life might be closer than you think.